Chapter 7, Key Issue 4, Content Objective. Why do ethnicities engage in ethnic cleansing and genocide? I-CAN statements. 1. Describe the process of ethnic cleansing. Describe ethnocentrism and xenophobia. 3. Explain the concept of ethnic cleansing in the Balkans. 4. Identify the principal episodes of genocide in Northeast Africa. 5. Identify the principal episodes of genocide in Central Africa and South Asia with the Rohingya in Bangladesh. Lastly, explain why ethnic genocide is a result to European colonization. Ethnocentrism, we begin to see, will lead into nation-state building at the turn of the 20th century. But ethnocentrism is, again, when you evaluate one's culture against the state of other cultures and see yourself as a superior culture. We see it amongst Europeans, Asians, and Africans. Ethnic minorities are just one, they're first associated with a homeland. Ethnocentrism of European culture was dominant in World War II, and also the breakup, or also the result of World War II, with the creating of ethnic, or with arbitrary boundaries for states in sub-Saharan Africa, which did not keep in mind the different ethnic groups. So thus leading to ethnic conflict or balkanization in sub-Saharan Africa. Xenophobia is the deep-rooted, unreasonable fear of foreigners or immigrants into a country. Restrictions on immigration in the U.S. and Europe we saw in the late 1800s and especially in the 20th century, and we've also seen most recently with the example of pro-nationalism or populist movements that have xenophobic policies. Ethnic cleansing, defined by your book, as a process is fully designed by one ethnicity or religious group to remove by violent or terror-inspiring means of a civilization population. We can see motivation for ethnic cleansing is the defeat of an army and subjected to forced removal of the less powerful ethnicity. We see with forced migration after World War II, where Nazis deported were estimated at about 17 million, and of those 6 million were Jews. Nearly 2/3 of European Jew population was ethnically cleansed. We see the forced migration after World War II, with the movement of ethnic Germans, Poles, Russians, and other groups who were forced to migrate as a result of boundary changes. For example, when a portion of Eastern European became a part of Poland, the Germans living in that region were forced to move west to Germany, and Poles were allowed to move into the area of similarity. Poles were forced to move when the eastern portion of Poland was turned over to the Soviet Union. Yugoslavia. The former Yugoslavia balkanized in the early 1990s. With that, the Balkans is about the size of Texas, the state of Texas. It's named after the Balkan Mountains in that Balkan Peninsula. They're mostly Slavic languages. It includes the countries of Albania, Bulgaria, Greece, Romania, as well as other Yugoslavian former republics of Yugoslavia. The Balkans in 1914, that will be the start of World War I. And with that, you'll see that Serbs and Croats will be multi-ethnic groups that come together under one Yugoslavia as the culmination of World War I. And then there's motivation to cleanse the Bosnian Muslims. And remember, the Bosnian Muslims, again, were mixed ethnic groups within the distribution of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Here we see a site of the ethnic cleansing of Muslims. This is the largest site in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Balkanized. We already talked about balkanized, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. But part of balkanization is breaking down along ethnic lines, but also ethnic cleansing works with balkanization tragically. We see with the ethnic cleansing in Kosovo recently, with in the province of Kosovo, where ethnic Albanians comprise 90% of the population. Serbia took direct control over Kosovo and launched an ethnic cleansing campaign of the Albanian majority. Here they use aerial cameras or photogrammetry. Ethnic cleansing is found in Africa because of the many nationalities and languages and ethnic groups or clans. We see with genocide the mass killing of groups of people in an attempt to eliminate that minority ethnic group. In Darfur region, where you have the black Africans that were subjected to discrimination and acts of ethnic cleansing and genocide. The Sudan government was the Janjaweed, which is the ethnic minority, Janjaweed Arabs, and they were also, their religion was Muslim, whereas black Africans, their religion was predominantly animism. The ethnic cleansing is estimated around 500,000. Nearly 3 million were subjected to concentration camps. Here we can see the Darfur region in the area where we would have found concentration camps and mass killings of genocide of the black African animists. Here's a picture of IDPs within South Sudan, because after the genocide in Darfur, many fled to South Sudan, thus creating a civil or ethnic conflict in Sudan, where many are situated in refugee camps and they're internationally displaced because they're not in their final destination migratory location. Here's another look at a refugee camp. All right, if you want to learn more, there's a sign. We see, again, ethnic genocide in Ethiopia and seizing the control of a small borderland, Abyei. And the ethnic lines fall between the Kordofan, who are both sympathetic to the Sudanese and the South Sudanese, and it's over resources, and they're pastoral nomads. We have the ethnic conflict in Rwanda between the Hutus and the Tutsis. The Hutus and Tutsis go back to colonial settlement with the giving of power by the Belgian government. And when we look at these two ethnic groups, we can see both ethnic groups speak the same language. They have similar beliefs, similar social customs. There's intermarriage between the groups, but yet they engaged in a large-scale ethnic cleansing. The Hutus were settler farmers, growing on the fertile lands of Rwanda and parts of Burundi. Tutsis were herders that migrated to the present-day Rwanda from the Rift Valley of Kenya. Hutus consisted of the majority of the population of Rwanda. And again, they were the first ones on the homeland. The Tutsis were controlled the kingdom for several hundred years and turned Hutus into their serfs. They became a colony, under Belgium, as already mentioned. During the colonial period, Tutsis remained in leadership positions. All right. And Rwanda became an independent country in 1962. Hutus gained power and overtook ethnic cleansing and genocide against the Tutsis. An agreement was made and signed in 1993 with help of the United Nations, where both Hutus would shut down the surface-to-air missile attacks, but in 1994, the surface-to-missile air attacks continued, and then after the assassination of the two presidents in 94, Hutus launched a genocide campaign, killing an estimated 800,000 Tutsis in Rwanda and 300,000 in Burundi, so over 1 million Hutus were killed. And in 2005, Rwanda continues to be governed by Tutsis, but Burundi has been led since 2005 by a Hutu elected official. Right. Civil wars in Congo. We can see the tribes or clans, ethnic distribution within Congo. Ethnic conflict is widespread because of arbitrary boundaries that don't match ethnic lines. The Rohingya in Bangladesh. The Rohingya is an ethnic minority group that lives in the poorest region of Bangladesh. When we look at the ethnic cleansing and genocide, Myanmar is a country of about 54 million. The majority of people in Bangladesh are going to be Theravada Buddhists, and they're going to speak a Sino-Tibetan language. The ethnic minority, the Rohingya, they live in a western state called Rakhine. As I mentioned, they're one of the poorest regions of the world within one of the poorest countries in the world. And the Myanmar government claims that the Rohingya immigrated through the British colonial era and they migrated illegally into Myanmar. In 1982, the Myanmar government enacted laws and took away the Rohingya citizenship rights, so the right to own land, right to attend school and hold jobs. So in retaliation to these harsh subjected conditions, they launched a counterattack against police and military posts that were set up in Rakhine. And in retaliation, the Myanmar government launched an ethnic cleansing campaign against the Rohingya, which forced, as we see here, refugees. And this is the state of Rakhine in dark purple. And we see that estimates claim that over 1 million Rohingya had been ethnically cleansed. And then we can see that about 1 million have migrated to the following countries of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Okay. Take time to reflect on what you've learned in this lesson. And there's in summary what you've learned. And that's the end. So again, reflect on this unit of study. Make sure you complete your test review, you do your practice quizzes, and prepare for the unit test.